funny. But when you watch all these actors, great, all these actors, there's a thing happening. Like when you're watching them on TV, you fall into them. And it is this like movement that's occurring, you know? And then you go, so why do those actors have that? And all these actors in these scene study classes are showing me their audition tapes and stuff don't. Absolutely zero to do with talent, or that person's more charismatic, or that person's more interesting, or that person is more of a human being than I am. That's not the point whatsoever. It's when you bring it on set and on stages, but on set, when you're bringing it in front of a camera, like what are they bringing that makes this movement happen? So step one is, you know, do they know how to act? Step two would be, okay, they've done their homework. That's great. They need to let go of their homework. So their insecurity is showing me their homework, which would be like step three is there's a surrender, right? There's like something happening. But even then, I'm talking to this actress, and she's, when I'm watching her do her stand-up and her sitcom comedy stuff, she's really, really good. And she does have a kind of a flow. So I start going, oh, that's interesting. So I'm watching all of her tapes, and I noticed that when she's speaking and she has a very powerful objective or an intention and she's affecting the other person, she's really quite magnificent. When she's not, she disappears. So you start going, okay, so why is this actress exciting when her character is exciting, but not exciting when her character is not exciting? And I started to question her about the concept of counterpoint, and she has no concept of the concept of counterpoint. And I start going, well, what's your internal conflict? And she goes, I don't know what that is. I go, what's your vertical conflict? What's the play against? What's the internal conversation? And there's no concept of that or understanding of that at all. You see? And in comedy, there's very little counterpoint. So suddenly that actress is really exciting because she's all out. And when you're going, fuck you, and there's conflict in the scene, then there's no need for counterpoint. So she's really exciting. But as soon as her character becomes at all introspective, complex, has a moment, is listening, just listening, she evacuates the scene. And that's because there's no anything happening internally. We are always in internal conflict with ourselves, always. And the quieter, less dramatic the scene or the moment, the less pitched or conflict-oriented the moment, the more internal conflict is going to bubble up, you know. But the three things are: do your homework, you know, let go of your homework, and then, despite the fact that your character is fighting themselves with their counterpoint, attempt to achieve the scene. Right? Do the homework, let go of the homework, and then fight through your own bullshit to get through. And that fighting through, whether or not the fighting through is I'm falling in love and I'm giggling inside and I have to act really serious, which, you know, I'm looking at Simon. Simon does it beautifully. There's a thing you're playing against, but that playing against is always what makes you interesting. Like, that's what makes you human. And so the idea that, you know, an agent will tell me, well, this actress just kind of dies in front of camera, they're just not that charismatic, is repulsive to me. Like, it's completely not true. It's, do they understand how to play into their own internal conflict? And I don't know anything about him and his acting. Just as an acting teacher looking at a clip, I'm appalled and want to tear apart the actors with notes. I'm going to show you this minute and a half or whatever, and compare. This is so mean. Compare Jerry Jones to Kiefer Sutherland, and I want you guys to write down or unmute and tell me what is the difference going on in there. Bad habits that he's playing, which you would never see in my class. The bad habits, which I would go, come on, to a new actor. Like, a new actor would be, why the sideways glance before every single line? Madam President, the da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. You're like, why are you doing that? First of all, that doesn't in any way, watch. You want to see the difference? Did you all notice his sideways glances before every single line? Yeah, and if you notice it, like you notice an actor's hands, it's because there's something unrealistic about it. There's something detached from their humanity. Audiences recognize, you can have an actor, Tony Shalhoub. You can have an actor that, like, Ray Liotta, their hands are everywhere. And it's just right. Like, it's just right for the character, and it's right inside of the zone, and it's exactly correct. Flow, the river's bubbling, it's gurgling, it's a rapids, it's a waterfall, but you don't notice it, you're part of it, you're going down it. When you notice an actor, anything inside of an actor in the behavioral affectation, the reason why you notice it is because it's dissociated from the humanity of the actor themselves. And the character and the actor have broken, and there's a gap between them. Right? There's a discrepancy between the actor and the character, and that's when I notice. So therefore, when I go, he's looking this way, he's looking, what's he doing? I'm noticing that. That's because it's noticeable, and it's noticeable because it's not in concert with the character. It's the actor doing a habit. But watch the difference between.
I'm sorry.
Terry Jones doing
I won't give Dana Walsh immunity.
she does it too, but you don't notice it because you're in flow with her, because her character's doing it. Watch.
The peace process is back on track. Dalia Hassan will represent her country at the signing. The Russians have accepted
that. The Russians have accepted. That's like a human being talking, and it's in flow.
Her and have undertaken to support
Mr. Deadeyes. What's he doing, Mr. Deadeyes? He's waiting for his cue. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you listening? So there's no listening happening. Now, again, he's having a bad day. He's nervous because it's Cherry Jones. I don't know. Does he have a drug problem? His mom just died. I know nothing about Kiefer Sutherland at all. And usually when I tear apart a film actor doing bad work, I get a bunch of messages and comments on YouTube saying, you know, well, it's not fair. Maybe I heard that he was having a hard day or whatever, you know. And I say with respect, all due respect, like, fuck off. You're on 24, you're Kiefer Sutherland. Fuck you. Like, you're getting paid $1 million an episode. Show up. It's your job. Be great. If you're not great, get out of the way. I'd much rather have Jackson do this role. Frankly, you know, Blake killed this role. So,
treaty.
Madam President.
That. So the difference between this
process is back on track. Dalia Hassan will represent her country at the signing. The Russians have accepted her and have undertaken to support the treaty.
Madam President, the Russians.
That. I hope you see the difference. The one is a natural, accidental, spontaneous character, absolute. It had to happen. The other one is an actor trying to rev up his engines because he was waiting for his cue. You see that? And so he's got these like dead eyes, and then he glances away to like try to find the energy shift so he can pounce into his lines. That's what he's doing. Anybody see any of the other weird habits he has? What did you say? Madam President. You're like, excuse me? I'm sorry, you're speaking to the president about nuclear war and the world coming to an end or her being assassinated or some shit. Like, could you speak more clearly? Like, I don't know what he's saying. And so he's mumbling. And the mumbling is, I'm a mumbler in real life. If I'm hanging out and having a pint with you, sometimes you might be like, sorry, Matthew, can you articulate? I've learned how to articulate Shakespearean and all that. But when I'm acting, I'm extremely clear because when I'm acting, I have an intention and an objective and I need you to understand. Or I'm mumbling because that's where my character would be. But when you're talking to the president about the world coming to an end or whatever, you probably need to enunciate a little bit. And the thing is that it's a very specific kind of mumbling. Does anybody know? It does feel that way, Michelle. The specific kind of mumbling is called swallowing. He's actually swallowing his words. And if you pay close attention, what he's doing is he's already starting the next sentence before he's finished this one. And that is a very, very early acting habit. And the reason why is because the actor's not in the moment. The actor's anticipating the next moment because they're nervous. And so they're already jumping to the next line of dialogue they've memorized, as opposed to being inside. It's like you need to be inside the tube of this moment. And I'm inside this tube and this tube is doing something. And then it shifts to the next one. Whereas he's just kind of like jumping to the next one before he's finished this one. And he does it a few times and it's incredibly amateur. So sideways glances, dead in the eyes, and he's mumbling his lines and he's swallowing his lines. And when he's watching her, he's just like, what's he doing? He's waiting for his cue. And so I
can't trust them.
You don't know that.
The information that I have.
You don't know that. Realization. She's calling me out on my data. She's wiping away my knowledge, which I do have. So my decision is to double down, trump card her, override her questioning, data bomb her. But he has to have the realization that she said, you don't know that. You don't know that. Yes, I fucking do know that, right? There would be a somewhat of a listening of a realization, but he doesn't. He's just jumping to his action without the realization. Do you understand that?
You don't know that.
The information that I have.
There's no realization. Watch it one more time.
I trust them.
You don't know that.
The information that I have.
There is no realization of what she said, and that therefore is cueing what he's saying. And that's what's happening.
Professor gave us I have it, and I believe him. If you let me question Dana Walsh, I can prove it to you.
No.
If you let me question Dana Walsh, I can prove it to you.
No. I won't allow it.
So that realization he has. He gives the cock of the head and he shows me that he's got a realization. And I go, oh, okay. So that's the first major realization of the scene. So that's the end of Act 1, which is why he stands up. So, okay, so he got that one. It's the major realization. But it's not that. Like, he gets his dialogue. That major realization at the end of Act 1 is an unspoken line of dialogue, right? Holy fuck. And so he understands that one and he plays that one. Good for him. And that's great. But it's the internal, it's why I'm going back to this actress that I'm working with, who's lovely, and she's starting out and she's got a couple of credits and she's trying to make her way up to a level anywhere close to this. She's going to have to learn how to be magnificent in the off moments. Be magnificent in the off moments, because there are no off moments, because in a moment where you're listening, where you're doing nothing, you're in an internal conflict or a rationalization or a realization or a justification, but you're doing something. And then it gets
You don't
worse.
want to know the truth.
What I want is to keep the Russians
Can you
at
see
the
Cherry Jones?
You don't
Watch.
want to know the
Ready?
truth.
Watch Cherry Jones's realization. Watch her magnificence of nothingness. Watch. You don't want to know the truth. So he's it's fine. He's playing the realization, but it's fine.
You don't want to know the truth.
What I
You see it? It's a nuclear bomb. She doesn't just jump to her dialogue. She has a realization that she got called out. I realize I just got called out, so now I need to politicize his ass. Now I need to policy reverse him. Now I need to caucus smooth over him. Caucus, that's political term.
Table.
That was a great parallel of looking away that works and looking away that doesn't.
allegations of this sort will drive them away.
What if the allegations are...
His beginning of the line, weird dissociative glances, really have more with him like doing the reset. You know those games where you're shooting zombies and you got to reset the gun? That's what he's doing. He's like resetting his energy. That's an actor thing. That's not the
True.
If I keep the Russians at the table, I can bring peace to a part of the world that has known nothing but war for generations. That is the greater good that I am working toward.
bullshit.
And to achieve it, there have to be sacrifices.
And that is, if you can find me a more definitive, more powerful, more righteous speech, I have to do this thing, right? And so she's being incredibly definitive. And yet, because she's Cherry Jones, there's also a part of her who's in conflict with herself. And there's a counterpoint inside, which is, his side of the story is not wrong. It's just that it's revenge or justice versus peace, don't forget. So she's fighting for peace. Does she want justice? Yes. Would she like to blow a couple of guys, just like tell the CIA or the NSA to go like knock these guys off? Yes. But she can't, because she's a president, not a human being. She's not allowed to be a human being. You understand? So if you look at her,
It has known nothing.
look, she's so definitive, and yet there's something in her, just a tiny little bit of, despite the fact that. And that's what makes her magnificent.
But war for generations. That is the greater good that I am working toward. And to achieve it, there have to be sacrifices.
And that's like the reason why she has to get passionate, is because there's a counterpoint. If she was just right, she would just say, dude, you're wrong, or you're fired. That's it. But she has to fight her point. Why does she have to fight her point? Because there's a counterpoint. Because there's something inside of her that knows it's questionable. That's why she's so passionate. Then you get this sideways glance again, I'm sure.
With all due
There it is. And then,
respect, Madam President, these people gave nuclear weapons to terrorists who were willing to obliterate half of Manhattan.
he barely got that sentence out, like, because it's just blowing out of his mouth. Then she
You
said,
don't know that. And I'm
he doesn't have any reaction
telling you,
to that. He's like a reptilian. He's asleep. He's a reptile who's asleep.
we have to move on. Even Hassan's widow has picked up the torch and is continuing the peace process.
Didn't listen to a fucking word she just said, has no concept of what she's saying, and has no realization. Cherry Jones, the president of the United States, is saying these things to you, and he's just going, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, cue, dialogue.
Even Hassan's widow has picked up the torch and is continuing the peace process.
Does she know the Russians helped murder her husband? Do you think she'd be willing to sign that treaty if she knew that? Have you even told her?
I hate that habit. Yada yada yada, the big gulping air between the sentences. It's a very, very, very early actor. That's swallowing the line.
That's enough.
Have you told her?
I said that's enough.
So anyway, my point, I'm sure there's a lot of comments. My point is not, okay, you know, famous actors can do bad acting, or why did he get famous or something. None of that's at play. My point being is be on the lookout and be wary for tricks and habits. And when you're looking at a Cherry Jones, you know, that's the career and that's the ability that you aspire to. She's the greatest. She's the greatest. She's the Wayne Gretzky of acting. And we Canadian quote, and we study her and try to understand her. And what's interesting is that because her acting is so intensely human and so exciting and so flowing and so surrendered and so vibrant, that it's easy to not see it. So when it's juxtaposed against somebody who's doing a lot of bad acting habits, you go, oh, that's really hard what she's doing. And then you start to go, okay, how is she doing what she's doing? And that's why I'm trying to give it to you.